This is the news on 92.3 Nigeria Info.
Good evening. It's Monday, 16th October 2023. Peace is the path to the prosperity of a nation. Let peace reign. On the news this evening, Niger Delta stakeholders assess presidential amnesty program. Rising crime in Rivers State raises concerns. Appeal court president directs transfer of election appeals. Nigeria's inflation rate soars. On the foreign scene, U.S. holds talks with Israeli Prime Minister. I am Constance Mega. Stakeholders in the Niger Delta region are assessing the progress and impact of the presidential amnesty program 14 years after its establishment by the federal government. Well, the amnesty program was initially introduced by late President Musa Yar'Adua to reintegrate former agitators in the region, transforming them into entrepreneurs and employable citizens to address unrest in this oil-rich region. However, stakeholders have expressed concerns that the intended objectives have not been fully realized. Former agitator Nature Dumale Kiege says none of the 30,000 beneficiaries have successfully reintegrated into society. Mr. Kiege, who is also the chairman of Presidential Amnesty Program Strategic Communications Committee, tells correspondent Emeko Tuka that the promises made to former agitators before they were disarmed have not been fulfilled. He said that a majority of beneficiaries rely on a monthly stipend of 65,000 naira for sustenance.
It has not achieved its purpose and intent. The reason is that the agreement they had with us was that they are going to train and engage people. But as it stands now, they are not engaging people they have trained. So it's looking as if it's a circle. You train somebody, the person is not employed. It's looking as if nothing has happened. In as much as they have not achieved in totality the reason why it was granted, it's not also a total failure. But there's something I want to quickly point out to, and that is the Niger Delta Recovery Plan. As it were, there are certain areas the amnesty program has been dragged into that ought not to be so.
Mr. Kege, however, said there is a positive outcome from the scholarship aspect of the program.
But I also don't want to completely say that the federal government have not done their part. They have done their part in terms of funding. And because of that, we have had many of the ex-agitators become pilots today, graduates today, lawyers today, PhD holders today, as a result of the scholarship part of the presidential amnesty program. So, in essence, the program is not a complete failure. And so, having said this, I'm going to score the presidential amnesty program 60 out of 100 because of scholarships we have. In terms of reintegration, that is where we are now. It is very poor.
He also highlighted a recent breakthrough in the introduction of a loan facility by the current program administrator.
In terms of reintegration, that is where we are now. It is very poor because many people have not been able to be reintegrated back to society, reconciled back to family and communities where these agitations take place. And so that is a serious challenge for the presidential amnesty program. Having said all this, I also want to use the opportunity to appreciate Major General Ndiomo, the present interim administration of the presidential amnesty program, who came up with this Pacoso loan. The delegates are giving money to start up little businesses that they will grow over the years for them to become entrepreneurs and self-employed. Over 100 and something people have been captured in the first phase.
In the same vein, a lecturer at the Ignatius Ajuru University of Education, Elechi Wabara, said despite the presidential amnesty program, issues like youth unrest, illegal oil bunkering, and social vices have continued to plague the region.
The amnesty program, as it were, did not achieve the purpose for which it was established. That is to the point that everybody can see. In the first instance, successes are being measured. So to what extent can we say or measure the success of amnesty program? Have we been able to succeed in having youth restiveness reduced? The answer is no. Can we boldly say today that bunkering and other social vices are now reduced to the minimum? It's still there and making more success than the amnesty program itself. So
Mr. Wigodo also said, Dr. Wabara suggests that the government redirect the amnesty funds towards establishing industries, creating employment opportunities, and boosting the nation's revenue.
They are seeing it as a money-making venture. At the end of the month, they are expecting allowance or whatever that is being paid to them. They are seeing it as more of that kind of empowerment. They are not accepting it wholeheartedly as a means of a new life, as a means of a new livelihood. The money that is channeled to this amnesty should have been used to create industries, and it will accommodate people. And the success, it can be measurable. When you create industry, you accommodate people, you have people with different skills. They can be engaged.
Moving on, a member of the Rivers State Zero Crime Initiative Committee, Ike Wigodo, says the recent increase in criminal activities within the state is a deliberate attempt to undermine the work of the police. Mr. Wigodo said this on Nigeria Info FM's Morning Crossfire today, and he advised residents to remain vigilant in their daily routines.
How far have we fared all this while? When you initiate a program, there are some persons out there making sure that this program didn't get the light of the day. And that is what these criminals are trying to do.
Well, Mr. Wigodo,
we as civilians, we have our own part, our own role to play. And what is our own role? Whatever you see, you report to the police. And that was why, even within this period, there are boxes playing. Whatever you have, if you have any information, because police cannot work with that information.
Now, some residents of Port Harcourt are calling on the police to properly incident gender violence in the state. It followed recent news: 2 women in the state who attacked their husband, while one used hot oil, the other opted for hot water, leaving their victims hospitalized. The 2 incidents are being investigated, but residents say it is important to ensure that justice is served and perpetrators held accountable for their actions.
If they're having problem in their marriage, they should just walk out of the marriage. Government should come into this matter. All those women that are doing that, they should just imprison them. Others will learn lesson.
This domestic violence is about attached to the economic situation in the country, or will attach it because of there is no love again in the family.
The regret where they regret be say, if you know now your husband, if you know do that kind of thing when do, it don't happen now. What you go feel do again?
I don't even know what marriage is turning into. If you feel he has offended you and then you cannot take it anymore, why taking laws into your hands? This is attempted murder. The man can actually die in the process. The government should look into it.
Even the woman now, anywhere she did now, she will be regretting it. That the powers of darkness, not the cause of these things.
Meanwhile, the director of the National Orientation Agency, NOA, in Rivers State, Young Ayo Tamuno, has advised couples to always ensure open communication to resolve conflicts without resorting to violence. In an interview with our correspondent, Mr. Ayo Tamuno also encouraged people to treat their partners with love, respect, and understanding.
People are beginning to lose confidence in their spouses. People are beginning to feel that these marriages are not necessarily important. People are beginning to feel that they have traded their rights to people that maybe do not deserve them. But if we take the preliminary steps of making sure that we investigate the character of such persons, that's both spouses, and deal with issues that are fundamental, if we deal with such from the beginning, I want to believe that marriages will succeed.
The Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, has explained why the Ministry of Information the reorientation of Nigerians to recover their sense as a nation. He said the mandate was given to him by the President. The chairman, Joint National Association of Persons with Disabilities, Kie Obomanu, has called on the Rivers State government to ensure that his members are fully incorporated into the ongoing recruitment of 10,000 persons into the state civil service. Mr. Obomanu tells correspondent Soibi Oruwari that the state government did not consider persons living with disabilities in their employment agenda.
In employment, we are supposed to have 5%. Recently, Rivers State government was employing people, and up till this time, I've engaged special advisors. Do you know the only thing they did? They just called a few persons and gave them, I think, 10 slots. 10 slots for so many persons with disability who are graduates. We are supposed to have 5%. So if Rivers State government is employing 2,000 persons, 5% of 2,000 persons, we have medical doctors, we have lawyers.
Mr. Obama also advised persons living with disabilities to act responsibly while waiting for the government to involve them in their programs.
We all also, as persons with disability, we need a mindset reorientation to allow the society to embrace us. A lot of people feel we are very troublesome. We are persons you can't have an agreement with, who will always be willing to or ready to renege on an agreement, who see every other member of the society as somebody who wants to take something away from them. No. Like I used to tell my community members and my executives especially, I said, this is the time for negotiations.
Dozens of staff new leadership for the CA and other government agencies. Still to come, INEC warns against misinformation ahead of governorship elections. Stay tuned.
A call for service.
Fixed 1st of November to rule on an application by the former NNPC group manager Andrew Yakubu. Well, Mr. Yakubu has seen his residence in 2017. As you may know, the lawmaker represents Adawa North Senatorial District in the National Assembly is Shaku Abu. The election of Senator Abu of the APC was voided in favor of the PDP candidate Amos Yohana. The President of the Court of Appeal, Justice Monica Dongban Mensem, has directed that all appeals from election petition cases across the country be transferred to the Abuja and Lagos divisions. The order affects governorship, national and state assemblies elections held between February and March 2023. The directive was issued following allegations and petitions against state tribunal judges. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has again raised alarm over the rising cases of misinformation ahead of the governorship elections in Bayelsa, Kogi and Imo states. A member of the Information and Voter Education Committee of INEC, Kunle Ajayi, said elections-related misinformation has become a major strategy used by individuals and groups in the political space to manipulate the general public to their advantage. Well, he spoke at a workshop for members of the INEC Press Corps in Nasarawa State today. As calls intensify for the privatization of the nation's refineries, a professor of development, communication and media studies, Walter Ihejirika, says it can yield results if government agencies are transparent. Professor Ihejirika spoke to correspondent Soibi Oruwari.
Fortification of our social structures. What we are calling for is transparency in governance, where people know that their leaders are out there for their good. They will still sell those structures to themselves and to their cronies, and at the end of the day, nothing will happen. So what we are asking for is transparency, good governance, sincerity in leadership, diligence in work, participation of the stakeholders, openness in governance.
Well, Professor Ihejirika, however, said selling off the country's refineries is not the solution to corruption. On his part, Executive Program Director of Policy Alert, Tija Bulletin Akpan, called for the setting up of a National Procurement Council that will check corruption associated with sales of national assets.
The management structures of our refineries are not strong.
The country hasn't ever succeeded in any privatization process. We've attempted as many in the past, rather, and we have failed at them. The refineries have been a very controversial policy node in Nigeria. So if the government is thinking about privatizing them, I think that decision is long overdue. See the procurement process in most states, and even at the federal level, having procurement councils, National Procurement Council, for instance, has never been convened. We're waiting to see if the current administration will convene that.
In business, The federal government says it is projecting about 26 trillion naira as expenses for the 2024 fiscal year. Minister of Budget and National Planning, Abubakar Bagudu, made this known to State House correspondents after the Federal Executive Council meeting in Abuja today. He said the federal government will maintain the January to December budget implementation cycle, and he also said President Bola Tinubu will soon present the 2024 appropriation bill to the National Assembly to ensure its ratification before 31st of December. Nigeria's inflation rate rose to 26.72% in September 2023 amid soaring food prices and harsh economic realities caused by the removal of petrol subsidy in the month of May. Well, the National Bureau of Statistics revealed this in the September 2023 Consumer Price Index and Inflation Report released today. In entertainment, Nigerian singers Rema and CK are set to perform at the Hey Neighbor Music Festival in Pretoria in December. Other global stars expected at the event include Kendrick Lamar, the Chainsmokers, and Khalid, among others. And in sports, the Super Eagles defeated Mozambique 3-2 today, marking the Nigerian team's first victory in a friendly game in 5 years.
And now, we'll bring you news from around the world.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken held talks today in Israel with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu over the escalating conflict with Hamas. The U.S. State Department said during the meeting, Mr. Blinken reaffirmed his support for Israel to defend itself from Hamas and the willingness of the U.S. to aid the country. They also discussed U.S. coordination with the UN and regional partners to help provide humanitarian aid to civilians. But the meeting comes as the humanitarian crisis in Gaza is reaching a critical point with water, food, and medical supplies running low. Well, that's the news this evening, but before we go, let's take a look at the highlights. On the news this evening, you heard that the Niger Delta stakeholders say the objectives of the presidential amnesty program has not yet been realized after 14 years. A stakeholder says the recent increase in criminal activities in Rivers State is an attempt to undermine police efforts. The appeal court president has directed the transfer of election appeals to the Abuja and Lagos divisions. Nigeria's inflation rate has risen. On the foreign scene, U.S. held talks today in Israel with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu over the escalating conflict with Hamas. The news was edited by Martha Okerenkem. Cloudy weather in Port Harcourt this evening. To reach the news team, send an SMS or WhatsApp to 0808-721-7215. And remember, peace is the path to the prosperity of a nation. Let peace reign. I'm Constance Mega. Thank you so much for listening. Good evening.